10 on Sports Central, we go over a college football game preview and prediction on the Week 1 matchup between the Alabama Crimson Tide and the Miami Hurricanes. Massive matchup coming up here in Week 1 between two teams that could definitely be national contenders up here in 2021. Alabama on one side, they were clearly the most dominant team in the nation last year, winning the national championship game. And Miami on the flip side is a team that is definitely on the rise right now. They got D'Eriq King at the quarterback position, who is definitely one of the better quarterbacks in the nation heading into 2021. And overall, this Miami team could definitely be a big dark horse in the ACC this upcoming season. So that being said, we're going to go and get started with our prediction on this game here today. And this game is going to be on Saturday, September 4th. Atlanta will be the location for this matchup, so obviously in a neutral location. 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time is also the time for this matchup, so it's going to be in the afternoon hours. Line currently says Alabama by 18.5, so the Crimson Tide are currently favored very heavily in this matchup by both the line and the FPI, as the FPI is saying 80% chance with Alabama winning this matchup. So obviously the over-under is also pretty high for this matchup. 62 is the current over-under, but Alabama, of course, being favored by 18.5. That's kind of the big surprise here, in my opinion. I know Alabama's an outstanding team and they won the national title last year, but this Miami team is for real, I think, in 2021. And D'Eriq King is a perfect reason to say that, because D'Eriq King, of course, is last year he was as good as he's ever been, and he's a very experienced quarterback now as well. And so yeah, Miami, especially having with D'Eriq King, their quarterback, under center, that is definitely a team to really keep an eye on this upcoming season. Series history, Alabama leads at 14-3, so we've seen Alabama just dominate this series between both these teams. Win streak is Alabama by 1, and the last game was played in 1993, so it's been a long time since we last saw a matchup between both of these teams. Here's your stat comparison heading into this matchup. You got Alabama last year, who was extremely dominant statistically, 35 points per game last year on average, 18 points allowed per game. They had 354 pass yards a game, 189 rush yards, and then for yards allowed, 203 passing, and then 117 rushing. So obviously, Alabama offensively was just outstanding last season. They were tough to beat. They were impossible to beat, though. Because Alabama was undefeated last season. You had Mac Jones, you had Devontae Smith, Najee Harris, three outstanding players at their positions, and all of which who could definitely be major NFL players in the future as well. So, Alabama offensively was nearly impossible to beat. There were so many talented players on that team last year. But for Miami, 29 points per game, 23 points allowed. They also had 269 pass yards a game, 163 rush yards. Then for yards allowed, 217 passing, 134 rushing. So once again, overall, both teams were pretty good statistically last season, but in particular, the Crimson Tide especially were. As for some key points for this matchup, obviously, once again, Alabama was 13-0 last year, so they were your national champions. And really, they just dominated the entire 2020 season. No team really came close to the talent that Alabama had last season. And that's clearly shown by, for one, the NFL draft, and for two, just the stats of all the players on the skill players positions on the Alabama offense especially. It's just insane how much talent was on Alabama last season. But this year's a little bit of a different story. You got Bryce Young. This is his first starting season coming up here in 2021, and apparently he's already got over $1 million in NIL deals, which is absolutely insane. But Bryce Young is definitely a hyped up quarterback, and I think he's got a tremendous amount of talent, and it's going to be very interesting to see how he does with Alabama. We've seen him do outstanding things in high school already, so he definitely looks promising heading into college. However, the thing is about this Alabama team that does concern me a bit is how many losses that this Alabama team had after 2020. They lost a lot of starters after 2020, and usually you see a ton of depth with Alabama, which this team does have a lot of depth, even after all the losses that they did have after 2020, but it still concerns me a little bit that Alabama is losing as much NFL talent as they had last season. So do keep an eye on that for Alabama. I think Alabama is still going to be definitely a national contender up here in 2021, but I don't think they'll be quite as good in 2021 versus how they were in 2020. As for Miami, they were 8-3 last season. Definitely an ACC team on the rise. D'Eriq King is a very underrated threat. And really, this Miami team is a very underrated ACC contender as well. You're hearing a ton about Clemson and North Carolina, but Miami's in the background here. And I think Miami could definitely give North Carolina a run to potentially win the division there. I think Miami, North Carolina is going to be one of those teams to win the division, and the winner of that game could definitely put up a fight against Clemson in the ACC championship game. But I would not be surprised to see Miami and Clemson be head-to-head in the ACC championship game this upcoming season. I mean, it's definitely within possibility. So every game is crucial for Miami in order to get to the top of that division, and this is a very important game for them for that reason. So, but yeah, overall, I mean, both teams definitely are very talented teams, and I expect both teams to have great seasons up here in 2021. But that being said, let's go ahead and look at the prediction for this matchup. I got Alabama 34, Miami 24 in this matchup, so I've got Alabama with the win, and I also have the under in this matchup right now at 58, which the over-under is currently 62. So Alabama 34, Miami 24, and I would be very cautious if you're betting the over-under in this matchup because it could easily, like I would not be surprised a single bit if we saw the over in this matchup. So do be careful about betting the over-under here because, I mean, we got two great offenses here with Alabama and Miami, but at the same time, I mean, both defenses could also be very stout in this matchup, and we could see a defensive one. So it could easily go either way here, so do be cautious of that. But 34-24 is what I'm currently going with my score prediction. I'm going to say 65% Alabama. I think Alabama does end up getting the win, and I'm somewhat confident with that happening, but I do think Miami, once again, is going to be closer than what people think. The line is currently saying 18.5, I think, for Alabama. It's going to be much closer than that, I think. I think we're going to see a closer game here. D'Eriq King is a more experienced quarterback than Bryce Young. I'm just putting it up straight to you, and I think this Miami team, I mean, Miami does have more experience as a team in comparison to Alabama right now. And even though Alabama may have more talent, I mean, Miami's got the experience. So that's what you're going with here is experience versus talent. And I mean, it's going to be a very close game, and I do expect Alabama to get the win once again, but I think it could be a pretty close game. And I think that at halftime it's going to be 17-14, so we see a very close matchup throughout the entire thing. And I think it's not until the fourth quarter when we finally see Alabama start to pull away a bit and get a 10-point lead, and that's where it's going to end up. 34-24 once again is my score prediction. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this matchup, and I appreciate you guys all watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. I'll see you guys later.